Beneath the golden hue of early morning light, the Wellington Crown Hotel sparkled like a gem nestled in the heart of Washington, D.C. Its grand lobby gleamed with polished white marble floors, towering crystal chandeliers, and panoramic windows offering a breathtaking view of the Lincoln Memorial. This was no ordinary hotel. It was a magnet for the elite, influential politicians, Hollywood celebrities, and prominent activists. Here, opulence and power intertwined. The soft clatter of designer shoes on marble echoed through the lobby, blending with the hushed efficiency of staff preparing for another day of catering to high-profile guests. Among them stood Jessica Miller, just 28, recently promoted to head receptionist, a role she considered the crowning achievement of her career. On social media, Jessica was known for her sharp political commentary, championing gender equality and regularly calling out the Trump administration. A committed liberal, Jessica didn't just see her job as hospitality, it was her platform. In her eyes, the Wellington Crown should reflect progressive values and serve guests who aligned with them. That morning, she was elated to learn that Robert De Niro, a well-known progressive leader and vocal Trump critic, had booked a VIP suite for an upcoming fundraiser. His presence felt like a validation of everything she stood for. But the moment of triumph quickly turned bitter. Also on the guest list that day was Caroline Leavitt, a prominent Trump ally and vocal opponent of the free press. To Jessica, Caroline represented everything she opposed. Acting on impulse, she canceled Caroline's reservation and discreetly arranged for her to be moved to another hotel. What Jessica didn't know was that this single act would ignite a chain reaction. Caroline's husband, Nicholas Riccio, was not only a devoted partner, he was also the secret majority owner of the Wellington Crown. That day, as Jessica stood behind the reception desk, the sunlight from the chandelier shimmered across the varnished wood like scattered stars. Unaware of the storm brewing, she believed she had taken a stand for her values. But what she saw as a principled decision was about to become the biggest professional mistake of her life. The soft click of keys merges seamlessly with the elegant piano melodies drifting from the hidden speakers of the Wellington Crown Hotel's grand lobby. Behind the polished reception desk, Jessica Miller focused intently on her screen, where the day's guest list appeared like a strategic chessboard. One name stood out in her mind like a beacon: Robert De Niro. To Jessica, De Niro wasn't just another VIP guest. He was a symbol, an outspoken progressive, a relentless critic of the Trump era, and a figure who represented everything she believed in. She imagined the moment she'd greet him with a warm smile, maybe even a handshake at the upcoming fundraiser. It was moments like these that made her feel proud to work at the Wellington Crown, a place she viewed as a haven for integrity and progress. But her pride quickly gave way to tension. Her eyes froze on a second name, Caroline Leavitt. VIP suite. Scheduled for the same day, same event window. A tight knot formed in Jessica's chest, as if someone had dropped a stone into the calm waters of her thoughts. Instinctively, she reached for her phone, scrolling through social media. One viral post labeled Caroline as Trump's mouthpiece. Another showed her standing confidently at a White House podium, the press secretary emblem behind her. Jessica muttered the title under her breath, bitterly. Caroline wasn't just a guest to her. She was the very embodiment of what Jessica opposed: conservative rhetoric, aggressive immigration policy, and the kind of politics she believed were tearing the country apart. She leaned back, twirling a pen between her fingers. The Wellington Crown, to her, stood for sophistication and progressive ideals. How could someone like Caroline, an enabler of what Jessica saw as injustice, be given the same luxury and recognition as someone like De Niro? The thought evolved from discomfort into conviction. She didn't see it as discrimination. In her mind, it was a form of quiet resistance, protecting the hotel's image, safeguarding its values. Without hesitation, she opened the reservation portal. One click, Caroline's booking was canceled. She rerouted her to a nearby, modest hotel, more fitting, Jessica rationalized, for someone like her. She composed a sterile email explaining the system error and offered the alternative arrangements. No apology, just cold, professional detachment. Done, she whispered to herself, a flicker of satisfaction blooming within. She pictured De Niro's arrival. The gracious nod, the grateful thanks for a seamless experience. She didn't question her actions, believing she was on the right side of history, serving people who were fighting the good fight. But the atmosphere in the lobby began to shift. Marcus, a server, passed by with a beverage cart and paused, a playful glint in his eye. Big day? De Niro's coming, he said with excitement. And Caroline Leavitt, too. That's going to be something. Jessica kept her expression calm. Just Dyro, she replied coolly. Marcus raised an eyebrow but didn't push further. Across the room, staff whispered. Leia, an assistant receptionist with known conservative leanings, scrolled through her phone, shaking her head at a headline critiquing Trump. They always blow this stuff up, she muttered. Caroline's just doing her job. Jessica heard the remark and clenched her fist beneath the desk, but stayed silent. She wasn't ready for a confrontation. Not yet. Her focus returned to the screen, double-checking Dyro's itinerary. His fundraiser would be held in the grand ballroom, drawing top donors and major press coverage. Jessica imagined herself in the crowd, soaking in the speech, perhaps even receiving a nod of appreciation for securing the suite. But in the quiet moments between keystrokes, a flicker of doubt emerged. It passed quickly, brushed aside like an unwelcome draft. She told herself she had done what was necessary, what was right. Even as the lobby buzzed with anticipation and the lines between inside a black SUV rolling through Washington's crowded avenues, Caroline Leavitt sat poised and focused, dressed in a crisp navy blazer. Her blonde hair was pulled back with precision, and her eyes, sharp and alert, scanned the screen of her phone. She had just left a strategic meeting at the White House, prepping for a press conference that could reshape the immigration debate in the coming weeks. Every detail mattered, including staying at the Wellington Crown, with its proximity to DC's media core and dignified aura. Next to her sat Nicholas Riccio, her husband, low profile in a plain gray shirt, far from the suits of Capitol Hill. While he rarely appeared in the limelight, Nicholas held more power than most suspected. He wasn't just a supportive spouse. He was the discreet majority owner of the very hotel Caroline had just been turned away from. I want to check on things at the hotel, Nicholas said quietly, eyes fixed on the passing cityscape. Thanks for coming with me, Caroline replied, still buried in emails. This week's been chaos. She paused, her brow tightening. My reservation was canceled, she said, blinking at the screen. The email was short, curt, and redirected her to a different hotel without explanation. Nicholas glanced over, posture straightening. Call them, he said firmly, voice calm but unmistakably serious. Back at the Wellington Crown, Jessica was still at the front desk, reclining slightly in her chair, a faint sense of victory warming her thoughts. She had made the right call, or so she kept telling herself. But in a quiet corner, Leia, the conservative-leaning assistant receptionist, scrolled through her phone and stopped at a post. Caroline Leavitt's coming to D.C. for the press briefing, it read. Where is she staying? Leia's eyes narrowed as she looked across the lobby at Jessica, sensing something was off. Then the phone rang. Jessica's hand moved automatically. Wellington Crown Hotel. How may I assist you? A firm, clear voice met her on the other end. This is Caroline Leavitt. I need to speak about my reservation immediately. Jessica's fingers froze midair. The composed, controlled tone cut through her. Caroline hadn't yelled, hadn't accused, but the certainty in her voice rattled something in Jessica's gut. Still, she shook it off. I've handled worse, she thought. Caroline would accept the transfer and disappear. Or so she believed. Moments later, a black SUV pulled up to the hotel's entrance. Caroline stepped out with quiet force, every inch of her appearance untouched by the morning's chaos. She was 27, but carried herself like someone far older, a woman seasoned by pressure, criticism, and power. Her eyes scanned the building with sharp appraisal. Tomorrow's press conference was a high-stakes moment, and this hotel was meant to be her ground zero. Nicholas joined her, a quiet presence but no less commanding. While the world knew him only vaguely as a real estate investor, he held the keys to this building, through silent partnerships and anonymous holding companies. He didn't come often, but he was here now, and that meant something. You okay? He asked softly. Caroline didn't answer at first. Her eyes remained on the email. Are they serious? She finally muttered, tone low and edged with disbelief. If this turns into something, Nicholas said, resting a hand on her shoulder, I'll handle it. Inside, Jessica tried to refocus on Robert De Niro's arrival schedule, but her mind spun. The call had unsettled her more than she cared to admit. Caroline's voice hadn't been angry, it had been measured, unshaken. The kind of tone that came from someone who wasn't bluffing. She glanced over at Isla, another front desk associate, who was now whispering with Leia and staring back at her. On Isla's phone, headlines were beginning to pop up. Posts speculating where Caroline Leavitt was staying. Tweets from press insiders. Rumors of internal drama at the Wellington Crown. Jessica's throat felt tight. She had made her choice, for justice, she told herself again, but the atmosphere in the lobby was changing. The air felt heavier. Eyes were watching. And outside, one of those eyes, Nicholas Riccio's, was walking through the front door. She's with Trump, but she knows her stuff, Leia whispered to Marcus, a server passing by with a tray of drinks. Jessica heard it. Her jaw tensed. She didn't want to get into an argument, but Leia's defense of Caroline only deepened her conviction that canceling the reservation was the right move. Jessica reminded herself, this hotel wasn't just about service, it was about principles. The quiet murmur of the lobby shifted as the glass revolving doors slid open. Caroline Leavitt entered, flanked by Nicholas Riccio, her presence unmistakable. Head held high, stride composed, she moved with the kind of dignity shaped by years in the public spotlight. But behind the practiced confidence, exhaustion lingered in her eyes, a product of long hours and unrelenting scrutiny. Nicholas, understated in his gray shirt, moved like a shadow behind her, silent, observant, yet exuding a quiet authority that unsettled the room. A couple seated near the lounge turned their heads. "That's Trump's press secretary," whispered a man, pulling out his phone. He started recording with the excitement of someone capturing a viral moment before it exploded. Jessica felt the energy in the lobby shift. The air felt heavier. She looked up from her desk as Caroline approached, Nicholas just behind. Jessica forced a polite smile and straightened. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How can I help you?" Caroline placed her hands firmly on the counter, her eyes fixed on Jessica like twin beams of cold fire. "My reservation was canceled," she said evenly, without theatrics. "I want to know why, and I want my suite back." Jessica's throat tightened. She tapped on the keyboard, stalling behind the pretense of a system check. "I'm terribly sorry, Miss Leavitt," she said, voice slightly uneven. "There appears to have been a system error. We've arranged alternative accommodations just a few blocks away. Very convenient." Caroline's expression didn't flinch, but one eyebrow lifted, slicing through the facade of calm. "Convenient," she echoed, her voice low, measured, and cutting. "I have a national press briefing tomorrow. I booked this VIP suite 2 weeks ago. This isn't a mistake." "Who canceled my room?" Nicholas stepped forward slightly, placing a reassuring hand on her back. He said nothing, but his eyes swept over Jessica with quiet intensity, as if reading her like a file. Jessica's composure began to splinter. She darted a glance at Isla, hoping for backup, but the assistant receptionist only looked on, curious and silent. In the far corner, the man with the phone was still recording. "Drama at the Wellington Crown. Trump's press secretary denied a room." He typed, his post already gaining traction. Jessica tried to steady herself. "Miss Leavitt," she began, voice firming, "the suite has already been assigned to another guest." She emphasized another guest like a warning and indirect nod to Dairo's political weight. Caroline didn't blink. "I don't care who it was given to," she said, voice now cold and firm. "Fix this, or I'll speak to your manager." Before Jessica could reply, David Thompson, the hotel manager, appeared from a side hallway. His face paled the moment he recognized Caroline. His eyes snapped to Jessica, silently asking, "What have you done?" "Miss Leavitt." "What an honor," he said quickly, his voice tinged with panic. "Is there a problem?" Caroline turned toward him, her tone cool but assertive. "Yes. My room was canceled with no explanation. I'd like one." David's expression darkened as he looked back at Jessica. A silent question hung in the air. "Why?" Jessica's lips parted, but the words wouldn't come. Her confidence, once solid, was collapsing beneath her. Under the glittering chandeliers of the Wellington Crown, the lobby had gone still. The marble floors reflected not just light, but tension. Staff members paused, guests turned to watch, and whispers filled the space like a gathering storm. Everyone knew something was unraveling, and Jessica Miller stood at the eye of it. Phones rise like a wave as guests in the Wellington Crown lobby record the confrontation unfolding before them. Caroline Leavitt, poised and composed, stands face to face with receptionist Jessica Miller, her expression sharp, unwavering. Beside her, Nicholas Riccio watches silently, hands in his pockets, eyes coolly scanning every corner of the room like a seasoned strategist reading a battlefield. David Thompson, the hotel's manager, stands between them, clearly unraveling. Sweat beads at his temple as he tries to defuse the tension hanging thick in the air. Caroline's words still echo. "I want to know why." Jessica's lungs tighten. Her fingers tremble on the keyboard as she tries to steady her breath. She starts to deliver the same excuse, system error, but falters the moment she meets Caroline's eyes. There's no anger in them, only a demand for the truth. I'll check again, ma'am, Jessica stammers, her voice cracking. She pulls up the reservation history. There it is, the cold, undeniable record. She had manually canceled Caroline's booking that morning, redirecting her to another hotel to prioritize Robert De Niro. Her stomach sinks. She glances at David, silently begging for backup. But he looks back at her with something worse than anger, disappointment. I'm deeply sorry for the inconvenience, David says, his voice unsure as he steps toward Caroline. We'll resolve this immediately, I assure you. But Caroline cuts him off with chilling calm. No assurances. I want the truth. Who canceled my room and why? The question strikes Jessica like a lightning bolt. Before she can respond, a quiet voice speaks from the side of the desk. Leah, the assistant receptionist, steps forward. Her eyes are conflicted, but her voice is firm. I saw Jessica cancel the reservation this morning, she says. She said the VIP suite was needed for a more important guest. The lobby falls into a hushed stillness. Only the soft hum of a phone live stream breaks the silence. Jessica turns to Leah, disbelief and panic flashing across her face. Leah, you don't understand, she begins, but David raises a hand, silencing her. He turns to Nicholas, now clearly unsettled. Mr. Riccio, I'm so sorry. We never intended. Caroline's gaze snaps to David. You know my husband? She asks sharply, suspicion rising. David freezes. His mouth opens, then closes again. Finally, he leans forward and says quietly, Miss Leavitt. Mr. Riccio isn't just your husband. He owns the Wellington Crown. Time stops. Jessica blinks, trying to process the words. The owner, she whispers. Caroline turns to Nicholas, surprised but composed. You didn't tell me? Nicholas shrugs, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I wanted to see how you'd handle it. David scrambles to explain. He purchased the hotel 3 years ago through anonymous holding companies. Only I and a few senior staff know. He didn't want attention, just a quiet investment. Then he turns to Jessica. You have no idea what you've done. Jessica tries to respond, her voice shaky. I just thought Mr. De Niro, he needed the suite. Her voice trails off. Even she knows how it sounds now. Caroline steps forward, arms crossed, not with rage, but quiet disappointment. You thought I wasn't worthy. Because I work for Trump. Jessica says nothing. The lobby's eyes are all on her. Staff. Guests. The man live streaming. The internet, watching live, begins to explode. Social media splits instantly. A conservative account tweets. Liberal hotel worker cancels room for Trump official. Bias at its worst. A liberal voice replies. She's a Trump mouthpiece. What did you expect? The hashtag Wellington drama begins trending. Journalists, influencers, even political commentators dive in. One reporter tweets, the service industry is now the battleground for political bias. This is reverse discrimination in plain sight. Another hotel employee posts anonymously. This happens more than people think. Guests rejected over their politics. It's real. Then, for the first time, Nicholas speaks to Jessica. Do you know why I bought this hotel? He asks softly. Jessica shakes her head, ashamed. Nicholas takes a slow breath. I was once homeless. Judged for how I looked. I built myself up, yes, but I never forgot what it felt like to be dismissed. He pauses. I bought the Wellington Crown to create a space where no one is judged for who they are or what they believe. You broke that today. A memory flashes in Nicholas's mind. 3 years earlier, walking through this very lobby when the hotel faced bankruptcy after the pandemic. No investors. No future. But he saw potential, not just for profit, but for legacy. A place that offered dignity without politics. Caroline places a hand gently on his shoulder. Then she turns to Jessica. We can fix this, she says. I'm not here to end your career. But I want you in a meeting, right now, so we can make sure this never happens again. Jessica nods, stunned, grateful, ashamed. She's been given a second chance she knows she didn't earn. David quickly escorts the group to a private conference room as whispers erupt behind them. Marcus shakes his head, whispering to Leah. She's done for. Leah's expression is harder to read. Maybe not. Caroline doesn't strike me as vindictive. The man live streaming is practically breathless. Guys, you're not gonna believe this. Nicholas Riccio owns the hotel. It's all over Twitter. Nearby, guests scroll through feeds, Watching the firestorm unfold in real time, support for Caroline, outrage against Jessica, and debates raging from hotel lobbies to Capitol Hill. The conference room door of the Wellington Crown Hotel clicked shut behind Jessica Miller, the sound echoing like a gavel, formal, final. It marked more than just a meeting. It signaled a reckoning. The room was sleek and modern. A long, polished mahogany table, high-backed black leather chairs, and tall windows offering a view of Washington, D.C.'s busy skyline. But the elegance did little to ease the cold tension in the air. A glowing screen displayed a reservation dashboard, but no one was looking at it. At the head of the table sat Caroline Leavitt, hands clasped tightly, eyes calm but piercing. Next to her, Nicholas Riccio leaned back in his chair, composed, but watching closely. David Thompson, the hotel manager, shifted nervously in his seat, dabbing his forehead with a handkerchief. Jessica sat across from them, her pulse pounding in her ears. The memory of the lobby confrontation, the live stream, the revelation of Nicholas's ownership, it was all still spinning in her head. Her eyes dropped to the table. No excuse would sound right. She knew the truth now. She hadn't upheld any noble ideal. She had let her own political judgment cloud her role. The silence finally broke. "We're not here to assign blame," Caroline began, her tone controlled but unmistakably firm. "We're here to make sure this hotel never repeats what happened today." She turned to Jessica. "I want to hear your thoughts first." Jessica blinked, stunned. She had expected reprimand, maybe even immediate dismissal. But this, being asked to contribute, left her scrambling for words. "My thoughts," she echoed, her voice cracking. Caroline nodded, unblinking. "You caused the problem. Now, tell us how you would fix it." Jessica looked to David for help, but he avoided her gaze. Nicholas leaned in slightly, eyes steady, not judging, but waiting. Jessica inhaled deeply, trying to calm the shaking in her hands. I was wrong," she said at last. "Wrong to judge Miss Leavitt by her role, by her politics." Her voice grew steadier. "If this hotel wants to stand for inclusivity, then we need to live that fully, not just when it's easy. We need training, real training, not just hospitality standards, but how to recognize and overcome bias, especially political bias." She paused, surprised by her own conviction. "We could create workshops. Invite speakers from both sides, liberals and conservatives. Help staff understand what it feels like to be dismissed for who they are, what they believe. Maybe even run simulations where they experience that rejection themselves." The room was quiet, not cold, contemplative. David slowly nodded, jotting down notes. Nicholas gave a small, approving smile, the first he'd shown since arriving. "That's a good start," he said. His voice was gentle, but carried weight. "When I bought this hotel, it wasn't just about business. I wanted it to be a place where people from all walks of life felt welcome. That begins with people like you, Jessica." He met her gaze. "Are you ready to lead this program?" Jessica's breath caught. "Lead?" she asked, incredulous. She had come in expecting consequences, not a responsibility. Caroline leaned forward, her tone resolute. "You understand your mistake. That's step one. Step two is taking ownership. We'll support you, but the follow-through has to come from you." Something shifted in the room. The tension gave way to purpose. David spoke up, more confident now. "Let's begin with a pilot session. We can include staff from various departments, front desk, service, housekeeping." He looked at Jessica. "You'll help me build the curriculum." Jessica nodded slowly, feeling the weight of a new beginning settle on her shoulders. "I'll do it," she said quietly, then firmer. "I want to make this right." Ideas began to flow. Caroline proposed implementing an anonymous guest feedback system to report any signs of bias. Nicholas offered funding to support training sessions and guest speakers. The energy in the room had transformed from blame to rebuilding. For the first time, Jessica felt the haze of guilt begin to lift, not erased, but redirected into something meaningful. She was no longer clinging to old tweets and rigid labels. She was learning what her values really meant. When the door opened, the sound of the bustling lobby returned. Whispers floated in from nearby. Marcus, the server, leaned toward Leia, curiosity in his voice. "She still has a job?" Leia gave a faint smile, her tone unreadable. "Looks like Caroline's giving her a chance." Across the lobby, phones refreshed feeds and screens buzzed with updates. Hashtag Wellington drama continued trending. But inside that conference room, something more important had just started. Not a scandal, a reset. In the corner of the Wellington Crown lobby, the man live streaming continues his commentary, now speculating about the emergency meeting unfolding behind closed doors. Social media buzzes. New posts flood timelines, some still condemning Jessica Miller, others now praising Caroline Leavitt for her unexpected grace. When the conference room door opens, Jessica steps out. The bright lobby light hits her eyes, forcing her to blink rapidly. The soundscape of hotel life, voices, luggage wheels, and soft music, rushes in, a jarring contrast to the tense stillness she just left. It feels like walking out of a storm, not untouched, but not destroyed either. She's been given something rare, a second chance. Jessica's hands tremble slightly as she clutches a notebook filled with scribbled ideas that Caroline and Nicholas had just endorsed as the basis of a new training program. But when her gaze meets Leia, the assistant receptionist watching from near the front desk, doubt flickers in Leia's eyes. And Jessica knows, rebuilding trust won't be easy. She returns to her station, trying to settle into routine, but her mind churns. She had compromised the hotel's integrity. Now, the responsibility to rebuild that trust isn't just professional, it's personal. Opening her laptop, she scrolls through reactions online. Some call her a hypocrite. Others defend her, insisting she acted out of progressive conviction. But a post from a respected journalist makes her pause. The Wellington Crown incident is a reflection of something deeper, political bias creeping into every corner of society, even service. Jessica shuts the lid. The words sting because they're true. In trying to uphold her values, she had violated their core, respect for all. That evening, in her small apartment on the outskirts of D.C., Jessica video calls her mother, Ellen, a lifelong liberal and anti-Trump protester. "I thought I was doing the right thing," Jessica admits, her voice thick. "But I judged Caroline just for her politics." Ellen listens quietly, her expression soft. "Being liberal," she says gently, "means standing up for everyone's dignity, not just those we agree with." The words land hard, and they stay with Jessica. The following week, she throws herself into the training initiative, now formally named the Wellington Protocol. Working closely with David Thompson, the hotel manager, she designs a series of workshops. They bring in speakers from both ends of the political spectrum, a conservative commentator, a progressive activist. Jessica is determined to make it balanced, real, and transformative. The first workshop draws about 20 staff, front desk, service, housekeeping. Standing at the front of the conference room, microphone in hand, Jessica's voice trembles slightly as she begins. "We all have biases. I'm living proof of that. I denied someone service because of their political affiliation. I'm here to make sure it doesn't happen again." Some staff remain skeptical. Leia, arms crossed at the back, watches in silence. Marcus, the server, whispers to a colleague. She talks a good game, but has she really changed? Jessica senses the hesitation, but presses on. She splits the group into teams for open discussion, moments they felt judged, or judged others, over political views. A housekeeper, Elena, shares quietly, "A guest once yelled at me for supporting Trump. Told me people like me don't belong in places like this." The room stills. Even Leia nods slightly, her posture softening. Jessica follows up with role-play exercises. Staff take turns acting as guests and employees, navigating difficult scenarios, from political slogans on shirts to guests demanding special treatment due to their affiliations. During one role-play, Leia, playing a combative guest, looks Jessica in the eye. "If I tell you I voted for Trump, will you still serve me properly?" Jessica breathes in, then answers, steady, "Absolutely. Just like anyone else." For the first time, Leia gives a faint smile. Her gaze isn't cold, it's curious. Meanwhile, in the grand ballroom, Robert De Niro's fundraising event is in full swing. Jessica stands off to the side, overseeing the logistics. As De Niro finishes his speech on unity, he walks over to her. His tone is neutral, but purposeful. "I heard about the situation. I don't agree with Leavitt politically, but how she handled it, that was admirable." Jessica nods, unsure how to respond. "Thank you, sir," she manages softly. De Niro nods back and moves on, leaving Jessica with a strange mix of humility and reflection. She had once centered him in her mistake. Now, his words only deepened her resolve. The workshops continue weekly. Slowly, the resistance fades. Elena becomes Jessica's collaborator, helping craft materials. Leia, once cold, starts contributing, sharing her own struggles of being quietly conservative in a largely liberal workplace. Jessica realizes something powerful. The program isn't just reshaping how they serve guests, it's reshaping how they treat each other. One evening, As she reviews feedback forms at her desk, Jessica finds an anonymous note. I used to think this hotel was only for the wealthy or political elites. Now I feel like it's for everyone. She smiles, moved by the honesty. It feels like the first true sign that the culture is changing. 6 months later, the Wellington Crown looks different, not just in tone, but in appearance. The once sterile walls now display bold abstract art, swirling lines and colors meant to symbolize unity through difference. And Jessica Miller? She's no longer defined by a mistake, but by the work that followed. Not perfect, but better. Growing. Exactly the kind of change the hotel and the country needs. The marble floor still gleams, but the lobby of the Wellington Crown has evolved. The once rigid arrangement of red velvet chairs is gone, replaced by light wooden seats arranged in a welcoming circle in one corner, designed to encourage conversation among guests. Nearby, a small indoor garden blooms. A trickling fountain, surrounded by lush greenery, brings a surprising serenity to the heart of Washington, D.C. Amid this transformed space stands Jessica Miller, holding a guest feedback form. Her eyes soften as she reads the words, "The Wellington Crown isn't just a hotel. It's where I feel respected." 6 months earlier, those words would have seemed impossible. But everything changed after Jessica's mistake, the one that denied Caroline Leavitt a room based on political bias. Instead of ending her career, it sparked something unexpected, the Wellington Protocol. The initiative, born from that moment of reckoning, has now grown into a phenomenon. The workshops Jessica helped design, centered on recognizing and overcoming political bias, haven't just reshaped how staff interact with guests. They've reshaped the staff themselves. Elena, once a quiet housekeeper, is now Jessica's right hand, organizing sessions and sharing her experiences with dignity. Leia, who had once looked at Jessica with guarded skepticism, is now a regular voice in training circles, telling her story of being alienated by colleagues for her conservative views. And Marcus, the server who once doubted Jessica's sincerity, now proudly tells new guests, "This is a place where everyone is welcome, no matter who you voted for." Surveys have reflected the transformation. Guest satisfaction has soared to 95%, and internal reports show a 30% increase in staff morale and engagement. Jessica walks into the garden, a symbol of renewal born from a workshop where Elena suggested a quiet space for staff and guests to escape political noise and recharge. Jessica had convinced David, the hotel manager, to invest in the idea. Now, it's her sanctuary. She sits on a stone bench near the fountain, watching the droplets catch the light like tiny stars. Her phone vibrates. It's a new email, an invitation. She's been asked to present the Wellington Protocol at an international hospitality conference in London. Her heart races, but not from nerves, from conviction. Later that afternoon, Jessica meets Caroline Leavitt and Nicholas Riccio in the garden, their first in-person conversation since that pivotal meeting 6 months ago. Caroline, still in her signature tailored blazer, appears more relaxed than before, her eyes gleaming with approval. Nicholas, dressed in a crisp white shirt, greets Jessica with a warm nod and smile. "You've done more than we ever expected," Caroline says, sincerely. "This hotel is a model now." Jessica's cheeks flush. "I only tried to fix what I broke," she replies softly. "But none of it would have happened without your trust." Nicholas gestures toward the lobby. A small group of guests are chatting near the reception, one wearing a "Don't Tread on Me" t-shirt, another with a "Love Wins" pin. They're laughing, not arguing. Sharing coffee, not conflict. "That," Nicholas says quietly, "is exactly what I hoped for when I bought this place." Jessica nods, a wave of purpose washing over her. She tells them about the London invitation, and Caroline's eyes light up. "Good," she says. "Tell the world. But be honest," she adds, voice firm. "Include the part where you were wrong. That's the real story, the part that matters." Jessica nods again, her expression determined. Not just a redemption arc, but a movement rooted in humility, driven by change. What once was a flurry of criticism aimed at Jessica Miller has now transformed into admiration. A once viral thread that condemned her has been replaced by praise. From the Caroline Leavitt controversy to becoming DC's most inclusive hotel, the Wellington Crown sets the new standard. A conservative journalist writes, "Caroline Leavitt gave that receptionist a second chance, and she turned it into a triumph." Even former critics on the left now applaud Jessica's evolution. "I'm a Biden supporter," one guest shares online, but the staff here treated me like family. 5 stars, no question. Back in her office, Jessica reviews the final materials for her presentation with Elena, now her trusted partner and regional training coordinator. Through the window, she watches the sunset bathe the hotel garden, the fountain shimmering like scattered gemstones. Her mother's words echo in her mind. Being liberal means respecting everyone, not just the people you agree with. 6 months ago, Jessica believed being progressive meant standing on the right side of politics. But now she understands it means something deeper, building bridges, not walls. The Wellington Protocol didn't just change hotel culture, it changed her. The Wellington Crown's grand ballroom glows with golden light, transformed into an elegant celebration for the hotel's 80th anniversary. White silk curtains sway in the soft breeze as a live string quartet fills the room with classical melodies. Hospitality leaders, political figures, and longtime patrons raise champagne flutes in celebration. At the center, a large digital screen rolls through the hotel's history, from its early brick facade to today's inclusive, greenery-filled lobby. At the podium stands Jessica Miller, now Global Training Director for the Wellington Group. Clad in a tailored navy blazer, strands of silver beginning to streak her hair, she exudes poise not from ego, but from experience. She takes a breath and begins. 1 year ago, her voice calm, I made the biggest mistake of my professional life. I refused a guest, Caroline Leavitt, because of her political beliefs. I thought I was standing for the right values. I was wrong. The room grows still. Only the faint clink of glasses breaks the silence. Jessica recounts the pivotal day, the confrontation at the front desk, Nicholas Riccio's unexpected revelation as the hotel's owner, and the moment she was offered not punishment, but the chance to do better. From that moment, the Wellington Protocol was born, she says, her gaze scanning the audience. A program now adopted by over 200 hotels across the globe. She pauses, letting the words sink in. Inclusion doesn't mean compromising beliefs. It means respecting the humanity behind them. In the front row, Caroline Leavitt, still serving as White House press secretary, sits poised in an elegant black dress, her expression proud yet gracious. Beside her, Nicholas, wearing a classic gray suit, nods subtly, watching a vision he once dreamed become reality. When Jessica acknowledges them by name, the crowd breaks into applause. Caroline lifts a hand with a small, dignified wave, the corners of her mouth tugged into a proud smile. Behind Jessica, the screen changes again, now showing scenes from Wellington hotels around the world. A receptionist in Paris helping a conservative guest find a quiet place to pray. A staff member in Tokyo comforting a liberal traveler overwhelmed by online harassment. A chef in New York City preparing a special dinner for a politically mixed family, one that ends in laughter, not argument. The crowd is visibly moved. Some wipe away tears. Others nod with quiet understanding. Small moments of empathy amplified into something global. As Jessica steps down from the stage, she's surrounded by a wave of handshakes, hugs, and gratitude. Elena embraces her tightly. You did it, she whispers. From across the room, Leia, once a skeptic, offers a rare smile and a nod of approval. A journalist approaches Jessica to inquire about expanding the Wellington Protocol to Asia. Jessica answers thoughtfully, then glances across the ballroom at Caroline and Nicholas, silently thanking them again. The celebration winds down, but Jessica lingers in the now quiet lobby. She stands before a newly hung abstract painting inspired by the hotel's garden, its swirling colors representing connection, growth, and complexity. She stares at it, reflecting on her journey, from a self-righteous receptionist to a leader of a global movement in hospitality, not by erasing the past, but by learning from it. And now, as the lights dim and the champagne glasses are cleared away, Jessica Miller is no longer defined by her mistake. She's defined by what she did next. On social media, the conversation has transformed. The hashtag #Wellington80 now trends not because of controversy, but in celebration of change. One former guest writes, I was once turned away because of my politics. Today, the Wellington Crown feels like home. As the lights dim in the lobby, a new staff member quietly flips open a training manual. On the very first page, in bold letters, it reads, Everyone deserves respect, no matter what they believe. Sunlight filters through the tall glass windows, casting a warm golden hue on the new portrait displayed near the entrance. The artwork, abstract and alive with color, serves as a quiet reminder, from a single mistake, a legacy can rise. Because the Wellington Crown Hotel has become more than a luxury destination. It's a symbol, proof that forgiveness, accountability, and learning can reshape even the most unlikely spaces. The story of Jessica Miller at the Wellington Crown is not just about hospitality. It reflects a deeper truth about America in 2025, a country sharply divided along political lines, where personal bias has crept into even the most neutral spaces. Jessica, a self-identified liberal, made a choice that mirrored the nation's polarization. She canceled Caroline Leavitt's reservation because of her role as Trump's press secretary, believing she didn't deserve the same courtesy given to Robert De Niro, an outspoken anti-Trump figure. Her decision sparked outrage online, with hashtags like #WellingtonDrama and #CancelWellington igniting fierce debate between conservatives and liberals. It wasn't just about a hotel anymore. It was about a national wound. But what followed defied the script. Rather than retaliate, Caroline Leavitt and her husband, Nicholas Riccio, responded with grace. They gave Jessica something rare in a viral age, a second chance. And she used it, not to protect her image, but to change the system. Jessica went on to create the Wellington Protocol, a groundbreaking initiative training staff to recognize and overcome political bias in service roles. What began as damage control soon became a movement. From the installation of the lobby garden, born from a staff workshop suggestion, to the heartfelt guest testimonials that now flood review sites, the hotel's transformation became a symbol of what empathy and humility can accomplish. The Wellington Crown is no longer just a five-star hotel in D.C. It's a case study in healing. In a time when political labels, liberal, conservative, left, right, are used as weapons, this story reminds us of something essential. True inclusion means listening, not labeling. It means doing what Jessica did, hosting workshops where people share stories instead of assumptions. It means doing what Caroline did, choosing dialogue over dismissal. The lesson? Start small. Forgive when it's easier to judge. Create your own garden, a space, real or symbolic, where people of different beliefs feel seen and respected. Because if one mistake, one act of exclusion, can trigger national debate, then one act of understanding can begin to bridge the divide. The United States doesn't need more echo chambers. It needs more Wellington Crowns. Thank you for watching this story. Subscribe to the channel for more inspiring narratives like this one, real stories of change, growth, and hope in a divided world. We'll see you next time, with even deeper lessons worth sharing.